Welcome to Love Yourself So Matcha,
the podcast where we get up close and personal with mental health issues.
In each episode, you will learn more about eating disorders, body image, self-love, and appreciating yourself.
I'm Cindy.
And I'm Lily.
And we hope that you will join us on our journey to loving ourselves so matcha.
Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to episode 6 of the Love Yourself So Matcha podcast.
For today's episode, we have another very special guest, Ting Cui, who will be providing her insight on mental health as an athlete.
Hi Ting, welcome to our podcast. Before we start, do you mind introducing yourself a little bit?
Yeah, hi. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm Ting. I'm the 2019 Junior World Bronze Medalist. I've been on Team USA for a couple years now. The 5th place finisher at the 2019 Nationals and 2018 US Junior Silver Medalist. That's sort of my skating background. I'm Chinese American. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and I currently train in Newark, Delaware with Natalia Lynchuk, Priscilla Hill, and Roland Burgart. And yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I've trained with Ting before, and I can say that she's a very talented and hardworking skater and person in general. So, yeah.
I don't know about that.
No. Compared to me, I mean, come on. I can say that at least, that compared to me, for sure. But yeah, just curious, like, I know we haven't talked in a while. I haven't really been in that community in a while, but what have you been up to recently and during COVID especially? How's that been?
Yeah, for sure. Let's catch up. Last year, all of 2020 was actually pretty rough for me. So if we rewind a little to 2019, after like the best season of my career, after Junior Worlds, we were in the off season and I injured my ankle pretty badly, but was able to recover, come back in like 6 months for US International Classic in Salt Lake City. And then I was scheduled for Finlandia Trophy and 2 Grand Prix, which was super exciting. But unfortunately, about 2 days before I was supposed to leave for Finlandia, I re-injured my ankle the second time. This time somehow like way worse than the first time, which was really annoying and frustrating. And so since then, it's just kind of been like a journey to recovery back and like rehabilitating. And then on the way, definitely having a lot of obstacles, both physical and mental, that I've been working through and trying to deal with. And then, of course, just coming of age, growing up, and deciding whether or not I want to skate in college, which is an issue that like a lot of older skaters deal with if they want to like end their career there and focus just on college. We like try to do both. And so that was also another thing that I had to work through. And of course, the usual skater problems, body image, pressure, training stress, all that fun stuff. So I'm so happy you guys are having me, and I'd love to talk about that, raise awareness about that, and hopefully help your listeners in any way that I can with some of my experiences.
Yeah, that sounds great. We actually have a couple of the topics that you listed already planned to talk about in this episode. A little bit more about like injury and mental health. We actually listened to a little bit of your episode that you did for Believe in figure skating, and we know that you did talk about being injured. So we're just wondering what recovery is like while being injured. Was there any things you dealt with in terms of mental health or stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely a lot of that. I should probably mention like my current situation too, because I think I forgot to mention that earlier. But right now I'm able to train. I'm like generally pretty physically healthy now. My body's never going to be perfect. I mean, figure skating's really tough on your body. But happy to be able to train and like work on my triple jumps again. But like getting here, definitely a tough road. I would say I've talked about this in the past, but the first injury, it was my first one ever. So it was just a shock, and not necessarily in a bad way, because I knew that injuries were inevitable. So it was bound to happen at some point. And yes, it was then. So just worked through it, kept the blinders on, and just focused on everything that I could do. And luckily, that process happened fairly quickly and easily. And I was able to get back. Great. Second one, it's tough. I mean, you know what it's like and how much it takes to come back now. And you're thinking you have to put yourself through that all over again. And then maybe even again in the future if you get injured again. So mentally, it's really challenging. And especially when you're injured, you just feel like you're standing still or moving backwards while the rest of the world is moving on with their lives. Like the injury is really dominating and it's overwhelming. And especially like for someone like me who's been skating all their lives, to have like the one constant in their life taken away from them, it's a lot and it hits you hard.
Yeah, for sure. I relate to a lot of that. It's kind of funny because I remember when I first got injured, like my first major injury. After that, I had trouble getting over like the mental hurdle of jumping. I don't know if this is the same for you, but I was kind of scared of jumping because I kept falling on my foot or something. And every time I took off, I'd be like, oh crap, it's gonna happen again. And then that actually made it worse because if you don't like jump high enough, you're probably gonna fall. Um, so yeah, that's like mental blocks are really bad after injuries, I think. And kind of along the same lines of that, when you have an injury and you're kind of in that state where you're not able to train, do you ever feel any pressure in terms of having to come back or any pressure from yourself or from your parents or coaches?
Yeah, I also definitely related to like being afraid to jump. I actually got some bad habits from that, like not like being scared to land on like my right foot. So there's like a bad two footing habit going on, but working on that. And also, like, sorry, quick side note, like when you first get back to the ring too, there's so much pressure to like jump and like get everything back as soon as possible, and you're almost like nervous just to show up at the rink and be doing like singles and like basic crossovers again, you know. But back to your actual question, when you're off the ice, so I would say like there's different phases. Like for me, I was in one phase where I was just trying to enjoy my time off and try a bunch of new different things with my newfound time. And that part was all right. You know, I enjoyed having the opportunity to actually like try some other things that weren't skating related because I couldn't skate. But on the other hand, like you realize, or at least I realized after trying different things, like academically, like extracurricularly, a little bit. For me, I found that nothing really compared to skating. So there was definitely a lot of pressure to get back on the ice as soon as possible. And then like being off for so long gives you a lot of time to think too, sometimes not in the best ways. So I had a lot of pressure on myself for thinking about whether or not I would actually be able to get all my jumps back, be able to compete again, and also whether or not I wanted to after being away for so long. And then I did have some pressure from my parents, but I would say like the pressure I put on myself was greater than theirs. But I think they were just anxious for me too, seeing how like anxious I was, just kind of like riled them up. Not that they weren't already thinking it, because obviously they wanted me back on the ice as soon as possible too. But they tried their best to keep me calm. And, you know, if I can't be on the ice, I can't be on the ice. There's no point in like really stressing about that. So that's kind of what they tried to do.
Yeah, I think that's definitely really stressful recovering from an injury. I think that this is also applicable to many other sports or many other athletes when they get injured as well, not just skating. So just wondering, did you yourself have any pressure that you gave yourself? I think you briefly mentioned this earlier, but just to elaborate a bit more, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. There was definitely mental pressure, especially for me. The second injury, dealing with that for so long, definitely raised some other mental health issues that I didn't know was there. So for example, I was like dealing with some depression during my second injury, especially like thinking about college and like being injured, you don't know if you can skate or skate as well again in the future. So I was thinking like, maybe I should just, like call it a nice career, move on with the rest of my life. So that put me in a really rough spot because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And my whole life seemed to be like so blurry and cloudy. And I just didn't know like what I could do because I felt like pretty useless at that point, not being able to do what I was good at. And then with like body image and eating issues too, not having something to like focus your day around and like having that routine that I was so used to caused some eating issues for me. And then definitely like body dysmorphia too. I was growing, so obviously my body was going to change, plus being injured. And so that was not super fun to deal with. But it's all tough and it's all kind of a part of the process of recovering, getting better, getting back in shape. And all of that has gotten like dramatically better since the peak of my second injury, which is good.
Yeah, those are some thoughts I think all skaters and athletes can definitely relate with. And I think we're going to ask a little bit about that later as well. I actually have a question. I wasn't originally going to ask this, but you mentioned a little bit about it, and I felt like I I might have dealt a little bit with that too. So I know like when we have injuries and we're coming back, for me, if I don't skate for 3 days, I can't do anything anymore. When you're like off for months on end, when you come back, there's a lot of, well, you're not able to do anything basically. And do you ever feel like there's people watching you at the rink and have the pressure of almost the general public staring at you and trying to, where they have high hopes for you, but you're still struggling with that internally and physically as well? Because I know when I had an injury and I was trying to get back and I couldn't even do a double axel, people didn't know I had an injury, and then everyone was super confused. Skating is a little bit, I don't know, there's like some drama, and people who maybe aren't necessarily your closest friends will kind of say like, oh, that's karma or whatever. I don't know. Do you ever feel that as well?
Yes, I love that you bring that up because I felt that a lot. So, okay, I'll just start with the karma point that you mentioned. I actually had someone like do that exact thing to me. There was a kid at like an old rink I used to skate at. And so you remember my dad, like very loud, very honest, and just like definitely a character, but like he meant well. So like growing up, I really felt like I was invincible because for so many years, like an entire decade of my skating career, I remained completely injury free, which is somehow a miracle now that I think back to like how I used to train because it was intense. So by that point of my injury, I like pre-injury, I really thought I was like pretty invincible. Like I had like a special gene or something. I don't know. But then I got injured. And so this kid at my old rink was like, oh, that's karma for her dad saying that she was like unbreakable and whatnot. Which was, I don't know, it just like it hit different. Not in exactly a positive way. Like I kind of see where he was coming from, but it just like, I don't know, it didn't resonate very well with me. And coming back to the rink, definitely a lot of skaters can be kind of judgmental. It kind of comes with the territory. But so I definitely felt a lot of pressure as I was trying to get my jumps back. And because everyone's process and journey is different when they're coming back, but mine took way longer than I thought it would and that I thought it should. And so that was really frustrating. And so already I was putting a lot of like pressure and stress on myself for not being able to like come back as quickly as I wanted to. It's like, what is wrong with me? Like, why can't I get these? But it turns out I was still injured and like I would like still when I was trying to get my jumps back, like roll my ankle like again, not badly, but just like tweak it and like stretch things out again, which would take me out for like a couple of days, maybe a week. Which was also not good. Just like me being like super anxious and like rushing the whole process. But so I felt like a lot of pressure already from myself, but then like from people at the rink, like watching me and like watching my jumps and like seeing like if I had them back, like what they looked like, all that. And so like for a moment I was definitely already scared to jump because of my ankle, but then scared to jump because I was afraid of being anything less than like perfect and like the peak of what the peak of my skating looks like, because that's where I fell from. And so I expected myself unrealistically to pick up right where I left off there. And I think I think other people, or maybe it was just like me thinking about what they were expecting from me. But maybe they didn't think that, and maybe it was all in my head. But I, there was definitely like a lot of unwanted attention when I was like first jumping again. Because when you first get back to the rink after an injury, like everyone's really supportive and nice, but at the same time, you just want to kind of like be in your own little corner, like trying to figure out like what the feeling of being back in your skates is, and just like kind of learning. It's, I mean, you've been injured. It's a weird process. Like the very first step back on the ice, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm gliding. I'm moving, but I'm not moving. Or at least that's how I felt. So it's weird. And like trying to come back to that and having an audience watch you do that isn't always the most fun.
Well, like, no, that was so relatable because I will say, okay, I remember when we trained in Colorado and when your dad was kind of structuring your training. Okay, by the way, side note, like your dad is really funny. It's funny talking to your dad. Like
Yeah,
you can't always take
definitely
things
not.
personally, but it's so funny talking to your dad sometimes. But I thought you were invincible too. Okay, I also had an eating disorder that year, but regardless, I remember like training with you at Air Force or something, and then also seeing you at Colorado Springs World Arena again. I would be completely dead, but I was trying to also do more that year. But I thought you were invincible too. But no, I definitely relate to the injury thing because okay, when I got back, I thought I'm gonna get my double axel in 2 days. Maybe stroking one day, double axel second day. It ended up taking 2 months. And when you said the thing about hiding in a corner, I didn't even want to go to like the rings with a lot of people. It was super embarrassing. And I was training with Derek at the time, and there was like a Saturday session, but it was a ton of people. And I was downgrading my double axles and just crawling on the floor basically the entire time. And I was like, oh, I want to skate in another rink. Like, I gotta find somewhere that doesn't have people and I can train in peace. But I definitely relate to what you're saying about that.
Yeah, I feel that so hard. I would avoid certain rinks because okay, so like I have an ex friend now, and she completely meant well, but like at one point she even asked me like why I didn't have my jumps back and like why I was taking so long. And that was, I don't even know. That hit me like a car. Like I was already thinking it. And then for her to like say it out loud, like fairly bluntly, like during a session where I was like falling on my jumps, that was a lot. I went home and cried that day. But
That is not something you say to somebody who has an injury. I remember, I think my mom said that to me, and I like just burst out crying or something.
yeah, not great. But I like more recently actually. So as I'm like more recovered from my injury, I can actually start training kind of full programs with like the kind of jumps that I have right now. And the very, very first long program run through I did in like 2 years, wow, that was really rough. I was crying in the middle of it after already the during my fourth element, like after 3 jumps into a spin, I was crying because I don't even remember, but the whole program is terrible. I think I maybe did like half an element in like the entire thing, but I somehow made it through. So I was actually kind of proud of myself for that, because I could have stopped in like right in the middle of it and just said, nope, I'm done. I'm quitting. Just gonna stop my competitive skating career here. But I kept going, which I think counts for something. So as crappy as it was, I finished the whole thing. But yeah, like just getting back into it and getting back into programs, it's so, so rough. And there was this one day before my first competition in 2 years. It was like a really small one. And I was just doing my long program, but it was like I was competing on Sunday. It was the Tuesday before, and I lost it before I even stepped on the ice. I got into the rink just super nervous about like showing up at the competition and just kind of like showing what I have again, knowing that I wasn't ready, but it was okay because I just needed to get myself out there again, even if I wasn't ready. And like not feeling super confident about my body pre-puberty, post-injury, all that. And so I lost it in my long program or before my long program. I was already just like a mess. And then my coach Natalia told me I had to do it and that I could do it. And I was like, no, I can't. So almost despite her, but also because like I sucked that day or that session, my day got better. But I fell in every single jump in my program, every single trip. And not only fell in it, I cheated it. But like the only positive thing I can say is that I like tried to rotate everything, even if I cheated it and fell, which again, I could have stopped in the middle of it and just called it quits. But I kept going. So again, just like trying to do what I can.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of our listeners can relate to the experiences you've had, even if they aren't skaters, because I'm sure many athletes have days, really rough days and rough practices. So we're just wondering if you could share how to stay optimistic during less than ideal situations.
Yeah. Optimism. My humor is kind of dark, but it's important to stay optimistic during challenging days. And actually, more recently, so okay, when I was younger and I was skating, and I would say for like an entire 10 years of skating, things were difficult and challenging, but so far from where they are now. So growing up skating, everything just kind of happened in a blur. Like I had my dad, like we were vibing together at the rink. Like I was in, I was out, I went to school, and it all just kind of happened. And like I worked really hard for everything that I have achieved up until this point when I was younger. But I wouldn't say like the road was like super challenging, at least not compared to what I'm doing now. What I'm doing now feels like 10 times harder. uh I'm alone. I'm like a young adult now, or like young adult now, kind of an adult. So I have to like handle a lot more things now. I have to like all of my training is mine. Like my parents can't force me to do anything. They know that. So, and like my coach too, if I'm showing up at the rink, like that's all me. What I choose to do at the rink, that's also all me, because my coach can't jump for me. She can't really make me do anything. I've had to like push myself through a lot more things, and it's been way more challenging than what I've had to do in the past. And especially jumping in a grown up body is difficult. I no longer feel like invincible like I was in Colorado, Lily. Like things are so much harder now. And so I have an appreciation for what I used to do when I was younger, which I didn't realize was like really good until recently. So, like, okay, that was really long, but in shorter words, there are a lot of bad days. And that is, I think, normal and part of the process. And you can choose to have a bad attitude, like, that's on you, but that won't make things any better. If you really want it, you just have to put on like the best face that you have, show up to the rink the next day, the next session, whatever it is, and just try and make that day better. So, for instance, I had such a crappy morning today. Just having like an existential crisis, again, like doubting my own abilities, being really hard on myself. And so I had a good cry with my coach like right in the middle of the day. Kept a positive attitude, kept determination to finish my day strong, even if the beginning of it was crappy. Like having the hope that I could still like have a nice finish to the day so it wouldn't be all wasted. So I got everything together and then did my short program, and it was pretty good. And so just totally picked up my day. And you're not always going to want to have a positive attitude, but it's important to lean on the people around you and to have some sort of encouragement when you can't muster it up yourself to keep you going.
Yeah, for sure. And I know as we get older, like we have different thoughts and different experiences in life, more things pop up. I mean, our bodies change. Like you said, it's very difficult to jump in a grown-up body. Honestly, I haven't even really tried. Like, I haven't skated in a year and a half, so if I ever decide to go back for fun, we'll see. I hope I can go back at some point, but we'll see how that goes. Actually, on the topic of development, puberty, kind of being more grown up, body image is definitely a huge issue in skating. I think we've all heard different things from when we were really young, which have kind of sort of molded the way we think about the way we look. Have you struggled with that before? I mean, you already mentioned that you have dealt with some stuff already, but what was that experience like for you?
Yeah. So a lot of these things hit me very recently. Like, again, I had none of these issues to deal with when I was younger, probably because I was just so focused and tired on like my daily training and activities that I didn't have time to like stop and pay too much attention to what my body looked like. But also, like you're still a child. I at one point I did want my now adult body to look like my child body again, like what I looked like when I was 12, 13, or 14. But it's just not going to happen, and I had to deal with that and get over that. But it really is a struggle. And I feel like for me growing up, I never really had to worry about my body actually, because I wasn't like super thin, but I looked like skinny and fit. Actually, I it's like by most standards I was pretty thin. But like, I wasn't like a stick. Like some of the kids I see now are. But it like was never really anything I had to deal with. I ate a lot. I remember growing up, and I would just burn it all off, like being a kid and just like growing, and it was fine. And so I think it was like really something more that I had to think about, um when actually I think it first started when I went to Colorado, because it was around the time that I like starting to I'm a very late bloomer that I was starting to develop. And more so during the injury, actually, like, this is not good. I would recommend this to anyone. But during my first injury, I like knew injuries meant like gaining weight and like being out of shape. And so I did everything I could to avoid that. So I just like wouldn't fuel my body like the way it needed to in recovery. And like I would be severely under eating and not great. And actually, my best friend pointed out to me, I was like still in denial. I was like, why are you doing this? Like, you're just jealous, and all that. But looking back on it, she is totally right. And so I leaned that way. The first injury, second injury, it was more like two extremes. So either like restricting or binge eating, which also isn't great. And that one kind of lingered, but body image is definitely a huge issue that I deal with now that I didn't have to deal with when I was younger. And I'm kind of jumping back and forth here between like years. But like I remember at one point growing up, you remember jump on it camps, right? So
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
So a bunch of like really motivated skaters, pretty young too, all being there and everyone just like wanting to show their best. So jump on it camp and ISP camp, I had coaches who were older. So, like different generation, different like cultural, social guidelines. But I had like these coaches like comment in a very positive way on my body, like saying how it was built for skating, how I looked like super good with my like nice long legs, skinny arms, just like thin lines and then like right proportions. And so I got those comments a few times, actually a lot of times, just a few times from coaches because like safe sport and all that. But a bunch of times like growing up, just from like other skating parents too, like commenting on how nice my body looked. And so when it changed, it was like this huge thing, like part of my identity that I lost. And it's been a struggle to like figure out who I am in like my new body and to just be accepting of that. Cause like honestly, like I look fit and good and healthy. And I guess like healthy is all that matters at this point.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say I think you look great, especially for your age right now. I think you look amazing. And yeah, I can't say the same for myself, but you know what? We're
Oh
working on
no,
it. um,
we're not gonna go there.
we're not gonna go there. We're not gonna go there. We're all for positivity here right now. But
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
yeah, I think you look great, first of all. But it's funny that you bring up Jump On It Camp and people commenting positive things because I think part of my eating disorder was catalyst, like one of the catalysts was Jump On It Camp. And the reason why was, I don't know if you remember that year, like we were both in Colorado, because I know the previous year we competed at Broadmoor, I looked like a totally different person. And at the time, I would receive negative comments. So whereas you would receive positive comments, I would receive negative comments. So, at Jump On It Camp, I just got back from China and I got really, really sick. So I didn't eat for a week. But I had already kind of started dieting at the time, just because after the Olympics, I wanted to look like Alina Zagitova or whatever. And
Mhm.
when I actually got sick, I lost a ton of weight and I went to Jump On It Camp. I couldn't do any jumps. That's why I didn't do any of the lessons that week. Because I was too embarrassed to go to the rink. Like everyone was there. I don't want to not be able to jump at the camp. But still went for the stroking lessons and stuff. And everyone was like, "Oh, you look so good. What happened? What's your secret?" So that's kind of what started everything, I think. And the fact that I couldn't jump should have been the first red flag. Like the fact that I couldn't do anything at that point. I was just too tired to even get up in the air. That should have been like the first warning sign that this is not the right health that you want to have for an athlete or for anybody in general. So yeah, it's definitely a very, very toxic environment. Sometimes people are great, but sometimes it's not the best.
Yeah. Okay. So I do remember that Jump On It camp. And okay, first of all, I got that comment a lot. I had like the ideal body type or whatever. Like that was a big thing for me growing up. Like people used to always say that. And I'd like be so proud of it. And actually, while I was injured the first time, I was like, if I have nothing, if I don't have my jumps, if I don't have anything, this is like first injury and also beginning of the second. Like the least I'm gonna have is like a nice, like twig looking body. Like even if I don't have any muscles, like I'm going to keep like my like 14-year-old body that is like pre-puberty and like totally unrealistic. So that was just like something that I was dealing with. And then that Jump On It camp, like I remember that was actually a big thing among all the girls. Like everyone was saying how good you looked and like how you lost weight, but it was like deep down everyone knew that it wasn't, like all the skaters, everyone knew that it wasn't healthy and like was unsustainable, but no, not even, just like completely unhealthy and not right for like what our body should have been doing, which is growing and being fueled for training. But
But it
like at the
still
same
tops all else, basically. Like everything else. Like even for when you
time,
say you didn't eat during
everyone
injury,
loved
I
it.
didn't eat during mine either because that's all I cared about. And then I lost all my muscle and couldn't jump at all. So yeah.
Yeah, but it's so toxic because we all know that that's not what we're supposed to be doing and it's not right. And you like kind of get educated on it. But at the same time, it's like what we all want to do and it's what we all want to look like, which is just like toxic skating culture. But yeah, I remember like those few years that I was training in Colorado with you and like honestly knew something was off, but I had no experience with like eating disorders at that point, so it like wasn't my place to say anything. However, I think whatever you look like now, you have a beautiful body and that you should own it.
I'm gonna work on getting back in shape because I haven't exercised in like since quarantine started, but you know what? That's okay too. So we're gonna just at least start doing a little bit of workouts to be physically healthy because we went one direction, can't go all the way the other direction, but gotta find a happy balance in the middle.
Yeah, I feel that.
So I think you like mentioned a little bit about how toxic kind of the pressure can be from the skating community in terms of your body image. So do you mind elaborating a bit more? Like maybe like from your coaches or stuff like that?
Yeah. So obviously like body image is a huge part of skating because it's an aesthetic sport and you gotta be like aerodynamic and whatever. So just within the rink, there's a lot of for me growing up, it was just like an unspoken pressure. No one really talked about it, but you could feel it. You could feel it through like the gaze of the parents, like the other skaters, or like yourself when you were just staring at your body, like looking at your reflection in the boards or like in the glass. So, and you would just like, I'm not proud of this, but I'm pretty sure like everyone has done this, like judge other skaters' bodies like in comparison to yours. And for me, like I never judged it in a negative way, but I just like saw, like I was aware of how mine looked in comparison to theirs. And it's like there was just like a lot of emphasis on having a skinny body. And I've heard stories growing up um of like coaches totally this is before safe sport, like abusing their students like who had bigger bodies, which was totally not okay. But I never had any coaches put pressure on my body. Not now, not in the past. They didn't need to in the past, and then now, I mean, Natalia is great. She, like, she's totally fine with like how I look now, and completely body positive, which is amazing. And parents, I always had like pressure from parents about my body, and that was actually like a big issue that we had to like work towards as a family, especially during my injuries, because like like my body was like the one thing that was gonna be a constant throughout everything, even if I didn't have my skating. So when it started to change and I wasn't skating, they started to freak out a bit, and like I was already freaking out, so like we were all just freaking out together, and it was just like a crazy mess. But I have to say, like, as I'm older now and maybe wiser, I don't even know. But like the community of skaters that I have around me now are just so great and supportive with everything. It helps that a lot of them are retired because everyone like they're older, like they're in college now, but still skating because they love it, which is like so awesome to see. But everyone's really supportive of bodies. And my new training mate, Emily, she's great. We talk about this stuff all the time. And it's like all positive, but we have like real honest talks, like no BS. We just spit it all out. But yeah, there's a lot of pressure surrounding body image there, which I think needs to be changed.
I think like on the topic of body image, we're just wondering like if you have any experiences with eating disorders and maybe if there were any triggers that kind of started it. I think you kind of mentioned some triggers, but we're just wondering about maybe eating disorders specifically.
But I had this like, you remember Vincent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So with Vincent Restoncourt, and this was like I think one of my first memories of a coach just like talking about this with me. But it was after like maybe 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. I was growing. So like my jumps being inconsistent was like kind of normal. But I was like really, really upset one day and like crying on the ice because my jumps weren't working. And this was like they were fine all week. It was just this one day. Um, but I was like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Like, why can't I do these jumps and whatnot? And let me just preface this by saying that like Vincent Restoncourt is like a very manipulative person and like a liar and just like not a great era in my life. And that's like a really long backstory there that I could go on for hours and hours about. But it was like post Thanksgiving, and he told me that the reason I couldn't like my jumps weren't working was because I ate too much and I gained weight. And he pointed
No way.
and was like, yeah, I can even see your like tummy sticking out. Like spilling out was the word he used. Like spilling out over my leggings.
Yeah,
And I
you can't.
thinking back on it, it was absolutely ridiculous because I was still like a skinny little like tiny Asian girl back then. And so that was like ridiculous, but I didn't know that. And like being naive and just super impressionable, I believed him. And so maybe that's when like my weight obsession started. That I like really started weighing myself every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. It probably was like sparked there, but it didn't really develop into anything until like later on. But that's just one instance. And then when I was in Colorado too, weight was talked about, but never a lot. It was just like we knew as skaters that it was our responsibility to like stay fit and thin. And
Yeah.
coaches wouldn't explicitly say that, but it was subconsciously in our job description. And we knew it. And like coaches would like occasionally mention it and all. So body image was, like, as I mentioned, a very big thing for me growing up, but it was never something I had to worry about. So it was really during like my later teenage years of development, again, late bloomer, that I started to focus on it a lot more. So with the first injury, again, staying thin was like number one on my list above anything else, which isn't right. And please don't do that. But that was where I had more, I think, anorexic tendencies where I just like wouldn't really eat because I knew that like I wasn't skating. So my logic was if I wasn't skating, I didn't need to eat. I didn't need anything if I wasn't skating and like training and like moving my body as much as I normally would. So I just got like a couple hundred calories, I don't know, like basics for a couple months. And then I would just be like compulsively exercising that whole time, trying to like stay somewhat in shape, which I was kind of able to do. My abs looked like pretty good, my arms too, which were the only things I could work out. But I did those exercises like compulsively, just so I could like do something because it was an obsession at that point. And then second injury is when I started. Okay, so like I should also mention that towards the end of the first injury, once I started training again, things got basically normal, which was good because then I was competing again. I competed once, then I got injured again, and then it was not very, very restricted tendencies this time. It was more like a lot of emotional eating because I was upset and I just needed like something comforting. And being very much a foodie growing up and never having it be a bad thing, I just like look to food for comfort, which is something that a lot of people do. And so that happened. So I would like binge restrict. And that was really complicated to me because I had never done anything like that. So I was just so confused as to like why this was happening. And it was like, it felt uncontrollable too, especially like someone like me who'd always been like so in control of like their life and their actions. This just felt so out of character. And it's definitely something, this is when I had to put a lot more work into my eating habits and just like my mindset when it came to food, and my body and fueling. So this is when I started talking with my sports psychologist about it, and then also a nutritionist to work through everything. But even so, like things are much better now, but still not great. And I don't think I'll ever shake these tendencies, at least probably not anytime soon. Just still being in the world of skating, like you'll always feel that pressure being at the rink. But I've definitely gotten much better at it. And something I've been trying to do too is like promote that same body acceptance and like fueling for training. Like that idea, like with the younger kids at the rink, being older now, I feel like it's kind of my duty to just like share some of my wisdom and experiences through the years with the younger skaters. So if I like see anything around that that's a red flag, I just like try to steer them in the right direction so they don't have to like go through like any unnecessary issues that I went through, because a lot of it was unnecessary. And if I had like an older sister kind of figure at my rank, I wish I would have like talked to them and heard about like their experiences, and especially like jumping in like an adult body. No one tells you how hard that is. Just this is off topic, but no one tells you how hard it is to jump in an adult body. So I have so much respect for the older US skaters, not even older, but just like, you know, like skaters are so young nowadays, like with all the Russian skaters and their like tiny bodies. But like some of the older US skaters still being in their late 20s, or no, early 20s, and like crushing it and like training all these jumps consistently every day. Like so much respect and admiration for them being able to still continue doing this, because just like continuing to do it, that's an achievement in itself in some ways. Like it is difficult. But anyways, that was I went off on a tangent again, but that was like my little ramble.
If this offers any comfort, I think stepping away from skating helps a lot with mental health, at least for me. But I think, yeah, it helps with mental health, and then you look at it with a different outlook. It feels better.
Yeah, I tried to step away at one time last year when I was like at my most depressive point. Like I really, really just needed to get out and like clear my head and try new things. My parents actually wouldn't really let me though. They tried, well, they kind of did. They tried a bunch of different things to still get me to skate, because I knew that it like deep in my heart, skating is still what I wanted to do. I was just having a really tough time at the moment. And they knew that if they let me like just stop for a couple months or like a month or something, I would fall behind even more than I already did. So at one point I was like kind of taking a break, but not really. But I would just like show up at the rink and like tell myself, I'm taking a break. I'm just skating as a hobby. Like I'm a recreational skater now. Like this is all good. We're like playing for 10. I'm still taking a break, you know, and all that. But definitely, like sometimes just stepping away and getting perspective is really necessary. And for me, that was my trip to Lake Placid that really helps that.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. I think we're going to ask a question really similar to what you just said. But basically, we're going to ask if there's anything you do outside of skating that helps you kind of escape the bubble, like the very intense training.
I'm actually a fairly boring person. I haven't done much outside of skating my entire life. But yeah, I do definitely like to do other things outside of skating. I just have yet to figure out like some hobbies that I feel passionate about in similar ways, because it's not going to be the same. But I love my friends. Just talking to them, whether it's like hanging out with them or just like being on a phone call with them for hours. And like I love that. It's so great. It gives me so much perspective to hear about like how their day is going, like where they are in life, like what they're working on. So one of my best friends, she also is Chinese American. Her parents also have like a small takeout Chinese restaurant. And like if you don't know, my parents have like a dine-in, actually Japanese restaurant. So in that way, our backgrounds are very similar. And we met going to middle school together before we went to different high schools. But she has really been great in just keeping me grounded in like the world outside of skating, outside of like the brick walls of the rink, and just reminding me that there's like a really, really big world out there that is just waiting for me whenever I'm ready to, you know, step away from skating. When I feel like I've given my best shot and am ready for the next chapter of my life, whenever that may be. And then my other best friend, she is living her best life right now. She got her first job. So she had surgery on her shoulder, and then that just ended up finishing her skating career. But she's amazing. I mean, we talk about what we're talking about right now a lot, but different things now that she's more stepped away. But it's nice being able to like talk to someone in who was like competitively in the skating world too, but is now retired and like is moving on to college and like other things, and just to like hear their perspective too, and like hearing about her like new issues with like guys and just like college classes and whatnot. It's exciting. And it just like it takes my mind away from like whatever I did at the ring, because I don't need to be dwelling on that once I leave. Also, shout out to WIP, Women in Politics. It's the organization that Lily and I both write for. That has also been taking up some of my time outside of the rank. I've been working on, I'm a co author for the children's book that we've been working on, and I'm a magazine writer for some of the monthly issues. And yeah, just trying to, I've got like a social media internship too that I spend some of my time on. And I'm into TV shows, like they're kind of my escape too. So just like putting on a good show, you know, and just relaxing with whatever time I have left. And also just like spending time with my family. My brother, he's gonna be a senior in, I think senior, in high school this fall, and he is applying to colleges. I think he may have gotten recruited to the Naval Academy too, which is crazy. But like spending some time with him, and then like going out for hikes together, like going swimming, is always really fun.
Yeah, that's super fun.
I think it was really nice that you talked about like how talking with your friends is like pretty therapeutic. Like I definitely agree sometimes when academics get really hard, like just taking some time to catch up with friends is really nice.
Yeah. And it's nice to talk to them. Absolutely. It's like completely therapeutic. Like you put that so well. But it's nice to like talk to friends who can relate to what you're going through, who like have gone through it. But it's also nice to talk to friends who are like a completely different perspective, and like they give you a new perspective and point of view. But yes, absolutely therapeutic. I like call them way too often.
Yeah. We'll look forward to your upcoming season and wherever you go in the future. I mean, congrats on like getting into Middlebury too. I know that's a very good college, and I'm sure you have like a very great future laid out ahead of you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited about Middlebury actually. I start in February. So they have a February admissions program where about 100 kids are, they start college in February. So I won't be alone. But we're called Febs, and then like everyone who starts in the fall is called like a reg. And then we also have like, so I'm class of 25, but since we start in February, we're like class of 25.5. So it's like a cute little thing. And then we graduate.
In your bio.
Yeah, yeah. So like for people who are confused, like that's why I have to explain it like kind of a lot, but it's okay. I don't mind. Like I love talking about Middlebury. And then we graduate by skiing down like Middlebury Ski Mountain, which is also so fun. And everyone that I've talked to, like who's gotten in, is like pretty similar to me in our interests, like liking to hike, like going outdoors, like pretty active, but also like at the same time we have like different interests academically, but like we're similar enough that I just know that I'll get along with like a lot of people. So it's really exciting. And that's another thing that's like keeping me going, just knowing there's another part of my life that's just out there and waiting for me after like these few months of like intense training. Cause that's so, let me just tell you that that's so helpful, because like back when I didn't know like if I was gonna get into a college period, that was really, college applications, like you know, are just so stressful on their own. And then not knowing if I wanted to skate in college or if I was like gonna get in and like which school would like allow me to skate in college. It was just a lot. But now I have a college, they have a pretty rink, lots of great people. I'm so excited. So no matter what happens in skating, I have that. And that's another thing that helps me keep a positive attitude.
Yeah, I think you'll really enjoy college. I feel like even though school is tough, it takes away a little bit from the stress of other things. So maybe you know what, if you do decide to skate in college, it might turn out to be even better because you'll have less pressure.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I love talking about all these things with, important things to discuss and like having an honest conversation with you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. This was actually so fun to talk about, and it's nice to have somebody who's gone through very similar experiences, which may or may not be good because that means that a lot of skaters go through the same bad things, but you know what? At least we're talking about it and bringing awareness to it.
Yeah, it's not talked about enough because I have these conversations with like you and then like some of the skaters in my rink and then like past skaters, retired skaters and whatnot. And like with each person, it's like such a revelation to just be saying it out loud. And but it shouldn't be like that, It should just like be out there so that everyone can realize it and that we can change the culture of it so that we can stop complaining about it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll hopefully be doing some of that today.
Thank you so much, Ting, for just talking to us and providing your insight with us. I'm not super familiar with skating, but this was definitely really interesting to listen to and learn about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening.
I hope everyone loves themselves so matcha more after this episode.
Stay tuned for our next episode. Updates will be posted on our Instagram and Facebook. Both handles are at Love Yourself So Matcha.
Also, make sure to check out our website, which will be linked in our bios.
Bye!